Hi, this is a video about me overviewing the cockpit that I built for playing DCS. I've uploaded in my Spine and several on my Facebook page, but just would like to document the things that I did. It's a very tremendous lot of work to do this. I'm happy to be able to build this. You're gonna see in details with inside this video, so stay tuned, and if you want to know more, see the rest of the video, subscribe, and shoot me a questions. I'll try to answer anything related to this cockpit build. Hello, this is me again. This time I'm gonna review my own flight simulator rig or gaming platform or simulator platform, whatever you want to call it. Um, Before that, I'm gonna step back a bit. The platform itself is actually a motion platform. I bought this from I bought this from DofReality. This is H3 versions of it. It's a home versions. It's just using a smaller motors over there. I'm using this for my flight simulators. I'm not going to review that. That will be a different video for it. But just to add it, I'm using a dampener as a modified version of it to reduce shakiness when the motor moves, because it's very the gear on the motor is kind of having a slack, so when you move it's like not really smooth. So I'm putting the damper to make it more smoother. It's not eliminating, completely. It's a different motor. It's very cheap motor, I guess, compared to a rod type of motor for more expensive motion simulators, but it's good enough to give you a sense of motion. Actually, this motion platform is much more suitable for car racing or rally kind of mechanism, but just want to try it in a flight simulators and to reduce motion sickness when you're using a VR kind of setup. Yeah, so this cockpit is actually, I'm using this for my VR. By the way, that's not my PC. That's the old one. I'm using the newer PC which I built myself. It's again, it's AMD 2700X with a Gigabyte motherboard, X470, and newer graphic card from Zotac for 2080 Ti version. So it's quite a beast for running mostly of the simulator with a high-end graphic setup. The case itself is it's a very modified versions using DIY 3D printed materials to have a very good airflow. Initially it's very tight airflow and very kind of not very good airflow from the initial. This is a very cheap glass RGB kind of case, but kind of modified that a bit to have a better airflow. So this is by the way, the name HDG is my brand name for my online store. Well, I used to sell something, but not recently anyway. So yeah, it's a stand for my second monitors, which I duplicate the main one here. Actually, this is running full HD at this moment, but this is actually a Samsung UD, I forgot the code, but it's a 4K monitors over there. but I put it in full HD because when I'm using this platform, I'm not going to be able to see, you know, from afar. So first of all, it's full HD resolution. Because I'm using VR, it doesn't, you know, affect the monitor resolution, you know. It's only matter inside the VR. So it's a cheap keyboard also from Bloody, with a full RGB setup, mousepad RGB setup, Bloody mouse brand. So it's a full RGB setup. So that's my rig. Before we go to the main cockpit, DIY cockpit that I'm creating. So another one is actually, this is the second monitor. It's a full HD monitor with, I put it on the stand back there. So just to make it closer to me when I'm using this platform, so I don't have to pinch my eyes to see where I'm clicking on. So before I'm going to the cockpit, that's my Samsung Odyssey VR, which is already modified. If you would like to see, by the way, probably not. Yeah, there's I kind of damaged the VR itself, creating a hole, but I creating a 3D printed fan casing. So it's actually an exhaust fan for Samsung Odyssey. So I can, by the way, the fan itself, it's controlled by a PWM controller. It's actually down here. That is on the orange box with the potentiometer. Says PWM control for the fan of the Samsung Odyssey. So I can play hours without getting sweaty inside my head. So oh yeah, that's my Phasma helmet, 3D printed. Anyway, so okay, so now we're going into the main topic, which is the cockpit itself. Is fully 3D print. It's mostly 3D printed using a plastic box and, you know, OEM button all over. I think it ups to 300 buttons, switches position, I guess. So some of them are 3D printed, like those gear lever, handbrake, those yellow, that is for dispensing or releasing ordnance out of your plane, and several box, customized box that I've created. Also, there's a lever there for using it with the Harrier, for example, in DCS. So you can use that for nozzle, angle of nozzle of the Harrier. And this one, for example, this one is for your seat belt, or sorry, seat fastener. And this one is for the ejection kind of safety switch. The main setup here, based on the MadCat X55, the old one. I've got the old X555 Throttle, and then joystick, and then the combat pedal from Saitek also. So it's MadCat Saitek's, both of Saitek product, three of them as the main core of the controller. If you can see here, for because it's lack of hand positioning, so I 3D printed myself this, so I can rest my hand over here. So it's very convenient. Okay, so I think we have to start from the left as usual. In this is it's a switches, various switches. With, you can see I'm using a different 3D printed what do you call it, switch cap here. So something is square. So this is this small one is actually a 3 positions switches. So I modified the switch to be able to read 3 positions. And this one is 2 position as usual. This is potentiometer. This is encoder, rotary encoders, and the other one is like that. So it's it's protected switches, buttons, encoder, and combined with this Saitek, which also already modified. Actually, I've broken my throttle because it's I don't know why, but it's broken, so I have to glue that things up. While I'm doing that, actually I'm adding several more button just for the radio, because I'm using oops, I'm using an XCOM voice attack configuration. I'm using XCOM voice attack configuration to control my communication. So I just want to add another button for radio instead of using. But I think I've lost this several button here during the broken one, so it is no longer connected. This analog switch is no longer functioning, unfortunately. But everything is work fine. I could use my F18 throttle kind of adjustment to land, so it's very important in F18 DCS. So that is that's my trackball. The trackball, I'm using trackball to as a mouse, so it's very you don't need a lot of space. That that game button over there, so a lot of them is I'm using that as my replacement for function key. So despite I got the keyboard on top of this, but in VR you're gonna be struggling to differentiate which button is F1, F2, F12. So by using that button box, I can count where it is, and there's a black dot over there. It's actually a protruding kind of accessories for kids. So I'm attach it so you can feel it. So there's a kind of a braille kind of idea where you can feel it in the dark or when you cannot see it in VRs, but then you know there's a number 2 button from below with a different small protruding things, bigger, small, bigger, those kind of. So a combination which I have to remember most of the time. For that gear lever, so I 3D printed it. It's very convenient. That is a flap switch with 3 positions. There's a hook handle for F18 or F14 Tomcat, for example. If you want to lower the hook, the catapult hook, not the hook for landing, and several switches over there. This is for dispensing ordnance. This is for the handbrake, and several switches here. These configurations can easily configure for F18, Harrier, and Mirage. I've tried to make as universal as possible so I can reconfigure it for at least those 3 plane or aircraft. I haven't really tested for F14 back then because just recently coming out, so I have to remap again probably the position or trying to reallocate the switches later on for F14. That's why I created this lever for Harrier. If I want to play with Harrier, some switches will be some autopilot here, while for F18 you don't use autopilot here but using the upfront controller. But for Harrier the auto will be here, and the lever and several switches that I can reuse. So that is the left side of the box. This is already like 1, 2, 3. This is using 3 Arduino inside. So for this side only, by the way, I'm totally using 10 Arduino MMJoy2 controller. So there are 10 connected Arduino from this whole setup. Okay, so we move from to the front controller or the button box. So here's the crazy button box area. So this is the front controller, panels, where in F18 this one is 9 digit 10 0 from 9 decimal numbers, and this is several modes in F18 if you might recall. And this is volume, sorry, this is brightness if I'm not mistaken. This is the full this is brightness for the front controllers, upfront controllers, and this one is the volume for radio. This is the channel, this is the encoder type, this is the potential type. So this is potential, this is for controlling, I forgot for F18, but I rarely use it at this moment. So this is for IFF, autopilot, things like that, or tag hand setup buttons in F18. It's not, you cannot put 8 for example, you have to go down a bit. This is also encoder, radio 1, radio 2, left MID, right MID, and bottom MID, or the what do you call it, a moving display, color moving display. That is moving map in color, so usually I put it there, or the horizontal directional kind of information systems, where you put your INS or your waypoint there. You can control it from that key surrounding it. There's nothing here, I mean it is not LCD, it's just a black sticker that I've used. What you see here is actually, you see it in VR, but you control it here for an easy access. I mean the other way around is really, alternatively you use the trackball from there to control directly when you're in VR, where your eyes see it, or the the mouse clicker, using the mouse to control the switches. I guess it is as effective as this one is a bit difficult first time, because you have to know where it is, and then you have to know which switches you are. That's why I put some black dot here. It's actually you can feel it. Oh, this is the topmost switch, and this is the middle switch among these five buttons. So that's how I know that I'm touching from here. This is the right switch. This is encoder for brightness and control. This is for contrast and things like that. This is all encoder switch that you can use for other things. This is for a master caution or reset, fire reset or extinguisher. There's actually, here is a black switch where you can open and close the enclosure of the switch. So there's rather than you flip it because nothing there, you switch it and then you press it. That's how it works. So just to simulate the cover of the switch kind of mechanisms. I put a keyboard upstairs just in case I need it, usually when I was off the VR, so I can easily reach the keyboard whenever I want. But when I'm in VR, usually I don't use keyboard anymore because it's useless. I cannot see anything. So this one is the upfront controller. This is the mode switch, where the AAAG kind of air to ground, air to air kind of mode. This is for this is for AAG. This one is for fuel panel controller in F18. There's a several mode in the fuel controller, or the fuel display controller. I forgot the name of it, but you can control the bingo fuel from here. There's a switch here that you can use in VR. Here is same, left and right MID. This one is actually it's not for F18. This one is actually for Mirage and 2000 and Harrier. They have a different kind of switch for armaments, but on the bottom part there's a push button here where you can dispense several munitions to be released from the aircraft for F18. So there's some button there similar to with the F18, but I think it's a bit here in triangle or in 5 configurations on top of each other, but here is a bit of horizontal. This is a master switch that you can use for your armaments in F18 and in any other aircraft for master arm controller. This is in F18 used for HUD kind of controller. This is for HUD brightness. This is for radar and for barometric altimeters. And this is very frequently used. This is for range, for course and range. This one is for the color moving display map. This is for contrast. I forgot the symbol, but this one is for the brightness itself, on and off. The bottom one is the, I think, for the ECM countermeasures. I forgot the ALR something 76, I'm not mistaken, for ECM dispense and other modes. I haven't used this one because I still practice flying the F-18 for landing in the carriers. I'm still in training for navigation only. I want to be as real as possible, not go straight for the game and drop bombs and anything, until I'm quite comfortable in flying the aircraft itself. So here there is some this, I think it's used for anti-stall switch. By the way, this switch, actually, if you open it up, this lever will push the button, so it will simulate the opening of the switch inside DCS. So DCS will know that I'm flipping this switch up, and then this switch will correspond to the other, like anti-stall kind of functions. But the flip of the switch, I detect that from that push button, which is pressed by this lever. This is, I forgot which is this one, is the potentiometers. Another switch, I forgot again the functions. This numerous rotary switch we can use. I think it's used in Harrier but not used in F-18. I forgot. This one is various functions. This one is actually for backup altimeters setting, where you can uncage things from here. And this one is numerous function that you could just anything for other functions. So that is the front cockpit layout and the functions. What else? Yeah, it's this one, I think, using it could, I forgot, I think it's four Arduino inside this, or MMJoy controller inside this area. So it's for MMJoy controller in up front of the cockpit. Now we go to the right side of the cockpit. So yeah, this one is mostly for battery, engine startup, things like that. This one is in F-18. I use this for sorry, I didn't use this one. I think I don't use this one because it's more functional on the, like, the anti-icing kind of those things, but I never use it. The one that I frequently use is this hook, because it's the landing hook for the F-18. This one is also frequently used. This one is for your wing folding mechanism, so I can pull the switch by pull this one in VR on in the game using this button, and then rotate this to rotate the lever onto folding and unfold condition. So this is frequently used. This one used. This one is for battery, master battery switch. This one for APU, or sorry, the generators, and those switches over there are for APU, engine startup, left and right. That's not used frequently. This one is used. This one is sorry. That one over there, that one is the oxygen switch. I also use handbrake frequently, the gear lever definitely, the flaps also frequently, the anti-skid and carrier or field-based landing mode, that for catapult hook switch. I frequently use that. Also the mode and the fuel, bingo fuel things, or fuel setting setup. The armament, of course, is master switch. The radio button box is very frequently used for TechHand, for things like IFF, for setting up radio frequency, whatever it is. So it's very used heavily in this case. That MID also is also used frequently, because if for FCS page or setting up the tactical or support page in the display, and HUD or radar mode, things like that. So that is the most frequently used button in the front and the left side, and the right side is the area that I'm top area that I'm using most of the switch. This area also. This one is rarely used. I never use this switch during my exercise. I use this this is a specific this specific function to reset my VR view, the reset for VR kind of reset button. This one is used for canopy, open and close. And what else? Oh, this one is for INS setting. This one is for radar on and off setting, and the rest is this one is for lights. So if I want to make a brighter backlighting of my panels, here is fully functional, this controller. And that one is used for volumes, and that is for the lights. I'm using the assisting for the lights. That's the A and B. So that is used for A and B test functions. And what else? I think that's most of it. Sorry, oh yeah, this is also frequently used. I'm using this for the ejection seat safety button. This one is I think this one is for F14 or a Harrier, I forgot, but this one for the ejection itself. But this one is used if that's for save what do you call it, a safety ejection seat button. So once you engage this, then the ejection seat is fully activated. So that is the switch. The seat itself is a cheap racing seat. And what else? I think that's it. That is my cockpit in general, with several buttons which I can put a one-on-one setting. So in this cockpit, I can set up a one-on-one cockpit's button setting instead of using a function or control or a combination button. So it can just map one-to-one on its function from DCS. I think DCS is the most complex today on for combat simulators. So it gives me a full immersion when I'm using this kind of cockpit rather than a keyboard, or the mouse button inside VR. When I'm putting my VR there, I cannot see anything outside, of course, so I have to kind of a bit touch and feel where's the button is. After some times, I think you get used to it, and you'll be able to remember where the switch is, and I think it's quite helpful. That's it. So hope you enjoyed. Any questions you want to ask me? I think if you ask me how to build it, it's a 4 months every weekend kind of time, or I have to spend building this cockpit. Is very kind of very demanding task, I guess, and a lot of soldering, a lot of cabling. Inside that box, the cabling is a mess. I don't want to open it again and then reconfigure. I've put a hot gun glue inside this just to ensure the cabling is not kind of getting loose. So, but that's very messy kind of work. It's not an industrial kind of product, so it's very it's just DIY me and trying to make it as quick as possible that complete this these constructions, but it's a mess. You know, inside this box is a mess. I'm using ribbon cable everywhere, and I'm not using a shift registers. If you know what I said, is I'm using a matrix button, so it's quite a mess. A lot of diodes to ensure no ghost press of the key and everything. So yeah, I mean, okay, that's my review on my cockpit. Hope you learned something or you're interested in doing something. The braille kind of buttons, if you see here, is really helpful. So when I touch it, oh, this is number 5. So I know this is the middle of the, in this area, this is the middle. Okay, so that's how I know where I touch with the different kind of this protruding symbols that I can feel. So that's how I find the key when I'm in VR, and a lot of symbols there's a triangle things like just to help me find the direction of the key. But once you get used to it, I think you can make it quick, a quick kind of a switch, you know. Okay, so enjoy it. Happy flying.